We enter the all-important month of December with baseball. This would be the first sports game from Nintendo. Make a note of that music because we'll be hearing the exact same music in the game Tennis. Now as we start the game here, notice that it actually allows you to choose your team, represented by those little letters there. We'll discuss that in more detail in just a moment. Now it's a long-standing video game tradition that when game makers come out with a new console, usually one of the very first things they do is put out some sports games on it. And that's exactly what Nintendo is doing. We're going to be covering baseball, tennis, and golf this episode. If you think about it, this makes sense. I mean, Nintendo didn't want to invest too many resources into creating brand new games, so they just sort of stuck with some of the standard formulas while they waited to see how the whole thing kind of worked out. Baseball video games have been around for quite some time, going back to the very earliest days of home consoles. There have also been some baseball arcade games. Let's take a look at some now. Here, for example, is Double Play from Midway from 1977. A lot of early baseball games tended to look kind of like this. Major advances in sports games were made with the release of the Intellivision, which was known for its reasonably realistic sports games. Here is All-Star Major League Baseball. This was considered to be pretty hot stuff back in the day. This is, I suppose, a somewhat reasonable, facsimile of how baseball is actually played. Now let's take a look at something for the ColecoVision Super Action Baseball from 1983. The ColecoVision was the most graphically advanced home console at the time, though in this case the game suffers from a pretty ugly color scheme and horrible little animations of the characters running around. And then suddenly, 1 year later, we jump to this. Wow, what a difference! Look at the players, they have like uniforms on and everything. And relatively realistic animations. And furthermore, the game even has two different camera angles. When you're batting or pitching, the camera is sort of zoomed in right on the diamond. When you hit a ball, it then suddenly goes back out and you can see the entire outfield. You can see a scoreboard in the background, you can see people in the audience, it's very nice. Now, like a lot of early baseball games, the controls on this are pretty simple. You mostly just control the pitcher and the batter. You use the button to either swing the bat or throw the pitch. The D-pad will let you move your bat around a bit, or give you a certain amount of control over the kind of pitch, fastball to the left, to the right. You have a very limited control over the players in the outfield. Once they have the ball, you use the D-pad to control the throw. For example, pressing up will throw to second base, pressing right will throw to first base, and so on. Now, of course, back then, if you take a look at this game, nowhere in the game or on the box, are there any sorts of names of baseball players, or any names of sports teams, or anything that would have to be licensed. This game is in no way affiliated with any sort of Major League Baseball team or product. But it still does, in sort of a sly way, refer to actual teams. For example, it shows you the first letter of each team's names. Now here, for example, D is presumably the Dodgers, based on their uniform color scheme. So even though the game doesn't actually mention the Dodgers, you can still sort of feel like you're playing them. But still, I don't believe there's any sort of differences between the teams in terms of stats or anything like that. The only real differences are simply the colors of the uniforms. Well, I'd say baseball is all in all a pretty good game, and for Nintendo's first sports game, it is pretty impressive.